Hello and welcome to Pale Reflections, a proud member of the Duff Network where we reflect on Wildbow's most sunny work as it releases. I'm Reuben Morehouse.
I'm Elliot Diebold.
And we have some special guests here. Special guests, introduce yourselves.
Hello, that's Clarence right there.
Hello, and that's Matias.
Mm-hmm. In this physical space that we just motioned at each other, for sure, across the digispace.
I definitely did a little motion.
We're all sitting at Duff HQ, recording a podcast, and we thought when we went to do our Reflections episode, we thought, why not just go one room over and bring in Matias and Clarence?
It's very convenient.
Yeah.
We do have opposite sleep cycles, but otherwise it works out okay.
I'm trying to figure out some joke about like Ray's virtual world, and we're in that or something, but I can't figure it out.
Well, keep working on it.
It's BYO.
Keep working on it, and when you figure it out, come back to us. How about that? Anyway, yeah, thank you, Matias and Clarence, for coming on the show. I guess we should address the elephant in the room, which is that you have just, as of tonight, finished your own show, Decomposing Worm.
That's right. The last episode, the 13th episode of our 12-episode series. Actually, it's more like, I think it's actually episode like 15 if you do like just counting, but
it's a baker's dozen, I think.
Yeah, it's a baker's dozen of Decomposing Worm episodes.
With some extras.
Some extras.
Very nice baker's dozen.
Yeah, we finished today. So it's kind of wild. We're done. We finished a thing, and we finished Worm.
It's so strange.
It's very strange. I
don't know such a large thing to finish.
Well, I have an idea what to do after, but we'll mention that at the end, I guess.
Okay, cool. Coming up later.
Stick to the end of this Pale Reflections episode to hear some exciting news.
Are you teasing it on Decomposing Worm as well, or do we have the exclusive?
No.
Yeah, we have.
You might come out earlier, though. I don't actually know what the timing is, but
that depends who edits this one. I think on our end.
The race is on.
Yeah, you're probably going to beat me on that.
So obviously Decomposing Worm, a great show, diving into decomposing, some may say, Wildbow's Worm serial, his inferior but still pretty good serial compared to the otherverse ones, I would say. Congratulations on what was a great show.
Are you trying to diss our our material, so therefore you're like dissing our podcast? Is that what this is? Is that that you brought us on just to bring us down?
By the transitive property, yes, that's what I was.
All right. Okay.
We're constantly trying to start this flame war between parahumans and the otherverse, just so someone will take us seriously.
Right.
Somebody's got to add fuel to the fire.
Maybe we can show up on like Hobby Drama, right? Like the inter fandom wars. I think that would be a good publicity stunt for sure. Does anyone want to join in? We can like get team names.
I feel like the way Reuben and I diss the parahuman stuff is like that. You know that meme where the guy's like, "I feel sorry for you," and then the other one's like, "I don't think about you at all." That's what it feels like sometimes. We're like, parahumans, we're better than them. Parahumans, like, what are you even?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's very much comes from like insecurity, a place of insecurity.
That's unfortunate.
Anyway,
let's get into what this episode actually is, which is a chance for us to reflect on leaving a mark. So we're reflecting on Arc 4 of Pale. We brought on some guests to get some interesting and unique and different perspectives to just our own. But first, let's quickly summarize for our listeners Arc 4, just so they know what happened. Because I don't know if this was a universal experience, but I definitely had this experience of some of the stuff in Arc 4. I mean, it was a long arc, and you just forget that some of the stuff happened this arc, right? To demonstrate that, in 4.1, Avery visits the Alabasters kind of cult area, and then takes the Zoomtown path home. And I just completely forgot that happened in this arc.
Really? So to immediately break up the summary, what I thought was interesting is that Zoomtown felt very much this arc, but everything in Kennet did not. So it's very location driven to me.
Right.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So after 4.1, we got our information packet on the Blue Heron Institute. So it's basically like a list of courses and how the school runs. Like it was just tantalizing lists of stuff that we might get to see.
Delicious.
And then the Kenneteers had a bit of a chat in their chat room, and I mean the TLDR of that is Lucy's worried about everyone.
As she does.
Rightfully so. In 4.2, from Verona's perspective, Verona's mom takes her shopping and shows us that she's the opposite, kind of awful as her dad. Before Ronnie ditches them both to go to a party, which is the correct call. There's a violent emotional outburst there. After breaking Jeremy's heart, she realizes that she's lost her bag, which was full of her gadgets.
Yes. And then in 4.3, from Lucy's perspective, she kind of like leads the crew, including Jeremy now, who are all kind of like on a chase to figure out where Melissa has taken the stuff. And then after they fight the large man who appears out of the tape, the trio track down Melissa, and Lucy sort of fairy threatens her into giving all of their stuff back.
The fairy duel, an excellent moment. We then move into the bonus material Packing Up, where the Kenneteers just list what they're packing. It's all the fun of packing up for a trip, but it's actually fun, not like packing up for a trip would be.
And then we jump back into Avery's head for 4.4, where she has this surprisingly cool conversation with Sheridan again. That's becoming Sheridan's MO. Before she distracts her family and sneaks off to summer school, where the team meets and greets some of the movers and shakers of the Blue Heron Institute.
Then in 4.5, from Verona's perspective, Alexander gives a grandiose speech before the Kenneteers start to make themselves at home in Nico's old room, and they settle in for school.
And then we get some of Verona's bedtime reading, where we get to have a sneak peek at what Verona's like looking into in terms of how she's thinking about leaving her humanity behind.
Yes.
Which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Cool is one word for it, I suppose. Worrying, maybe. Nerve-wracking. We move into... Yeah, don't, exactly. Then we move into 4.6, where Lucy and Avery wake up and meet more of their schoolmates. So we start to see how everyone kind of relates with others and starts interacting with others. And of course, Lucy attends her first class with not so radical Ray, who promptly kicks her out because she, is a human being, I guess, which is a crime punishable by expulsion to Ray. And of course, on her way out, Lucy overhears Mr. Bristow discussing them and Kennett.
And then in 4.7, we're back with Avery as she kind of awkwardly is left in Ray's class and decides to participate, which caps off with her awkwardly trying to befriend Jess, aka Miss Congeniality. But after class, the trio attempt to go off on their own and attempt to talk about Mr. Bristow and stuff, but Alexander shows up to help.
Then we have some extra material with the student guide, where we get a full map of the school as well as descriptions of every student in attendance. Or actually, it's only the upper students, right? The lower students don't have descriptions, right?
Well, they get like the little one word,
like
a
or
quick
2
little
word
thing.
summaries.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then in the interlude, 4.x, we get Snowdrop's perspective, which I was very excited about and enjoyed the whole way through, where we kind of enter Snowdrop's head as she embarks on a series of all of her misadventures, trying to get strawberry milk and, interacting with the brownies and return Verona's throne. And luckily, Nicolette is there to save the day for a bit of it.
It's delightful.
Yes. Very gracious of her. 4.8 sees us back in Lucy's head, and we jump back in time, actually, as Lucy is getting more sword fighting training with some free therapy on the side. Now, I'd just like to pause and say, I didn't write that, but I really enjoyed saying it. As Lucy becomes more secure in herself, we jump forward in time to see her put it to use against Alexander, refusing to cede ground in their negotiation.
Then for our next extra material, we get another little sneak peek at some dossiers that Alexander's made on the people he thinks Bristow is going to send out. So we basically learn about various poor souls and also some monsters that Bristow keeps in his apartments.
Which are so cool. In 4.9, from Verona's perspective, the Kenneteers experience the horrors of group projects as Zachariah leaves them to do all of the work. Before Zed and Eloise? I think it's Eloise, right?
I say Eloise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Eloise. I think
even
that's
though
right.
There's no U.
It's French-ish. Help
like
them
the
prepare.
pants.
Huh?
Like the striped pants, little girl, Eloise.
I don't know anything about this.
Okay, never mind then.
Time for some live Googling. Eloise striped pants.
Oh,
is
the
this a
book
real
series?
thing, or is Clarence just making it up?
No,
Doesn't
this is
seem like anything's
a
on his
thing.
also.
Deep red, but maybe that's not the
She also might be a
appropriate search
pig.
term.
I don't know.
Okay, well,
Eloise striped pants pig. No,
Zed and Eloise
still
help
no
them
results.
prepare the scariest ritual we've seen yet, calling Verona's dad.
And then 4.10, we get the perspective of Avery, where the group discusses the various ways they can use to get home, which were all super fascinating. And then before settling on the idea of having Jess take them back via the ruins. And it's about as horrifying as you can expect, but also very interesting. And we get close to getting some clues before we jump back into the real world and find out that the Bristonians are already there.
A real word, Bristonians, not just
Bristonians.
tenants.
Look,
or
I
whatever,
said you were all free to rewrite these after I drafted them. So
we have
don't
to
come at
include all
me.
the random weird words that you put in.
That's the best part of discovering what someone else has written.
And then, of course, we round it out with the final bonus notes, which is Verona's spell notes, where she takes us through some even more advanced diagram techniques. Bulky chapter there. Had some parties in it, which I'd completely forgotten about. All kinds of wild things. I guess, Matias and Clarence, what were your thoughts on Leaving a Mark?
I think it's different from the ones before. There's a lot of moving around, and like there's a clear shift between the party stuff and the arriving at school and dealing with that stuff.
Yeah, there was definitely there was also just in general like an atmospheric shift between the first three and then this arc in terms of like what Avery, Lucy, and Verona are like focusing on. Because before they've been super focused on making sure they go speak to everyone and that they're kind of keeping up with everything. And this is sort of like giving them a new entryway into the landscape of like everything and how to be a practitioner. So it was definitely sort of a shift in perspective, I think.
Yeah, it feels like we've stepped out into a bigger part of the world in the process of trying to learn a bit more about how to solve the Carmine Beast's murder.
Yeah, I think not only that, though, it's been nice for us to see, examples of what does normal avenues into this world kind of look like, right? We've had the Kennetiers as this example of, hey, they're practitioners, but we don't really know, what their experience is and how their experience reflects the traditional or normal experience for a practitioner. And it's nice to get a lot of really horrifying examples of just what that actually is like.
There's such a variety of it too. Not only, I mean, that's with the brochure that we get. We just see the enormous scope of what the practice does, and it almost seems to imply to me that there's even more beyond these as well. There's there's defense against diabolism, but there's not diabolism on here. Something I noted. Among other things. Yeah. There's just so much, and now or later, I want to ask you what your favorite classes would have been out of that brochure.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, like what would we have taken?
Yeah, did you guys not do that on your own episode? I haven't listened to.
We did. We did.
We did. I'm trying to remember.
I was interested in all
what
the
about
finder.
you two?
Oh yeah. Matias, what are yours first? Reverse card.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the specific courses, but definitely all the categories with magic tools. I didn't think I would be interested, but as I read the stuff, it's just like making stuff and finding things, and there's just a lot more. It just seems a lot more like reliable and not as deadly as many of the others, right? Like Dark Realms and traveling through them sounds fun, but I don't want to stay there. Yeah, exactly. So,
but it's so interesting, like the completely new spaces that can be explored. I mean, I'm not really like generally an adventurous person, but I like space a lot. I like dwell in space, and I feel like that would be like where I would exist is like the immaterial realms and like all of them.
I knew you were going to say something like that.
Make friends with a finder. so I could get the stories secondhand, because I don't think I could cope with it myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like their research assistant.
Oh, that's fun. Oh yeah, alchemy. That was one of the things that I was really interested in.
I'd be very keen on doing the alchemy, whatever's the kind of making magical objects and dealing with all that stuff. I just think that's so fascinating. I think that was my answer when we did the episode. Since we got the dossier on Clementine, the Gilded Lily, who finds a lot of these magical items, I think I'm less keen on them now based on the horrors that she's clearly gone through, but I think I'd still put that as my answer.
Yeah. I mean, but that's also with everything. That's just the other verse.
Yeah, there's always like something else
horrifying about the thing that you're interested in.
There's never anything that's just like fully what it is.
Well, you could just try being a good person. That is a legitimate branch of practice.
That's true.
I mean,
it doesn't work super well, but
yeah, I was about to say there's got to be some catch for that. I remember that one. There was like one that was just like how to have good karma or something.
Yeah, maybe if you have too good karma, there's like a karma vampire, and you just attract them, and you get screwed over that way.
Yeah, I think there's no way to avoid the horrifying world, so you just kind of have to pick the part of it that you'd be, that you'd survive, you think.
Oh man. Yeah. What's the god of ice cream? Can I just do some divine stuff with that one?
I think his name is Basra.
Is it?
I got that.
That's a very deep cut reference for you.
Yeah. Don't bother researching that, anyone. It's not worth it.
It's not worth
anyway.
I found Zoomtown and the other ones described were very, very interesting. Just the existence of Zoomtown, the colored blocks, the colored houses that move, it's wild. It just reminded me of just like video games. Like
the paths are very fun. Like I'm always excited when it's like, let's learn about a new path, because I'm like, this is going to be wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a side adventure.
Mm-hmm. What I found so interesting about them is that they're so different from like the cost feeling of the paths is that there isn't a cost other than a risk of dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you go through it and you might get a couple like downsides, but for the most part, it's just like if you pass, you get a power up. And it seems so different to me than all the other, like, if you're using fairy stuff, you're having to spend glamour. Than anything else, you're spending personal energy or some other kind of energy or something.
Yeah, well, I think because I think Zed talked about that, didn't he, at one point, where it's there's limits to sort of how much you can gain, though. Like the sort of other side of that is most of the power ups are really niche or uncontrollable or to do with the paths. You can't sort of come out of it with like some massive power source like someone like Alexander or whatever might be able to get.
Right.
Yeah, but I love the paths just conceptually. I think like we talked about in a recent episode, I'm sort of viewing them as these manifestations or incarnations of like common imagination tropes. Like they're the sorts of things people daydream about, which makes finders like daydreamers.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I love now that we're setting up, there's these paths that go between other paths, not necessarily between like the real world. So there's like, ideas that just sort of go between other ideas and they don't really connect to anything real, but they help you get from A to B. Like it's just such a fun landscape that seems like there's so much you could do there.
Like Miss did. She lived on the yellow staircase? Something like that?
Spider, it had spider in the name, or like web or something. Spiderweb staircase or something, yeah.
Yeah, and just the act that you have to discover everything is fascinating. Like the fact that like do these rules exist before someone discovers them? How did they get created, right?
That's
right.
It would be wild to just be like, oh yeah, as soon as one person stacks their toy blocks and their toy train in the right arrangement, they finally stumble into Zoomtown. There must be. I'm so curious about this as well. What is the the evolutionary process of these rituals? Like, was it people just played in a certain way, and over time it took on meaning?
Yeah, like with Miss in her discovery of the detour, right?
Yes.
Like, was it always there, or did she sort of make it?
Or did it appear?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do these paths get constructed?
Right. Because if it's the unconscious, like, how does something like a specific, like a detour? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I'm viewing them as manifestations of imagination or whatever, and then people do, like, I think Miss and also I forget the name of the kid who hit on Avery in Zoomtown, but they both have sort of talked about there's like an underlying logic there that clearly I just haven't figured out yet, because it all seems very arbitrary and deadly to me. But like I imagine it's sort of rules relating to where these paths are coming from. Like, with Zoomtown, there was lots of you can't go back somewhere, and that sort of made sense because
Don't touch yellow
you're speeding
houses.
along. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Yellow's the worst team in Fall Guys. That makes sense.
I really like how these reflections episodes can just descend into absolute insanity over time.
Yeah, but no, like the paths. Like it's just always exciting when it's like, let's go to a path. I'm always like on board.
Yeah,
I want to see the purple creature, whatever it is. Or, of course, it probably depends. And the mug mile. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't believe Farbo would just tease those and not. I mean, I'm sure they're not. I suspect it's going to be like a bonus material, or he's just going to write a little thing that he posts on the subreddit one day. And this is what the Mugmile looked like, or whatever.
Well, that's what he did with the denizens of the, oh my gosh, what's the name you gave it, the special people, the people,
the apartments.
Yes,
right.
Yeah. Bristonians, is that what you said?
Yeah, the Bristonians.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I was just trying to remember that. With the Bristonians, right? There's just some of them listed, right? The couch potato. There's the sentient mass of pests, which I just was wonderful. It was so wonderful. I actually like copy pasted that and sent that to a friend and just be like, "Hey, read Pale. Look
at this. Cruel.
My favorite part was that the rats have a job.
Mm-hmm.
They make money. It's so insane.
They interact with other people as a person too. Like,
it did seem like quite efficient, as like a whole complex of beings residing in a space. But I don't know. I feel like they're lacking in agency.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's like ominous.
I just want to see the sitcom there. That's all. That's just like, I don't know where this concept comes from actually, but it's a very common like internet concept of just like it doesn't show up in memes per se, but it is a meme in that it's a like cultural idea, but like the apartment complex or hotel or something where all the denizens are unusual people in some way or another, and then you go down the wrong hallway 3 times and you end up an entirely different wing, or you can just keep going downstairs infinitely, and then as soon as you go back up one, you're back at your room or whatever, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a concept that like it does exist.
Even just the idea of like a hotel that's kind of a sanctuary for monsters is a thing that exists in and of itself, right? Like, like in Hotel Transylvania or season 2 of The Adventure Zone, or a season of American Horror Story, I think, did it as well.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
It has kind of become a trope, and I think this is an interesting version of that trope where they're not.
Yeah.
In fact, they're explicitly not monsters. They are very people, which is wild, and I'm glad that we're going to get the chance to explore the humanity of these group of monsters, basically. I mean, the analogy of a group of monsters living in a hotel. I just think that's a very fun idea.
I think we're going there. That's one of my little predictions, is that we're gonna go to the apartment complex. It's too cool not to. Come on. There's 50 weird people.
Or save it for the spin-off series.
Fair enough.
Each chapter is about a different resident.
Yeah, a group of short stories. It's like the perfect setting for it. Totally. I mean, that's basically what that the dossier's bonus material is, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so to launch back to something that was said quite a while ago now, I really liked the sort of point about how it feels like there's been a shift. Like it feels like we've stepped into the second gear of the story. It's sort of like the year, and like their presence in the school and even in the the Muggle realm has sort of ended at this party, and then it's like they've transitioned now to magic school and shit's getting way more real, and it just feels like everything has gone up a level at this new school.
Yeah. Just to about the party, the Uchiwawa tape, which is first of all great name. Or actually don't know if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, but that's how I want to. But he's crying cold tears guy is terrifying, and like it was hilarious, but also extremely unnerving at the same time. And I think that's like that's the tone shift of like, oh shit, this is actually like that's actually like a pretty good place just to put the milestone, right? As Matthew says later, it's like we knew you were gonna fuck up eventually, right? And this is just this is within the bounds of expectation. Don't worry about it. But it's like, okay, we've reached that fuck up. Like now we are in the expected danger zone. We were doing good before, but now we're like just normal.
Yeah, you're right. And of course, to celebrate that, they're going to go out to this wider world of the school and all these much more powerful and mean people.
Yeah, it's a good point. We've talked about on our episodes of this arc the idea that the Kenneteers are now being exposed to what actual practitioners look like. But it's also probably worth noting that from what we understand, even the Blue Heron Institute is a kind of nice version of the real world that exists out there, right? Like a lot of these other practitioners, presumably that exist in the world, don't have something like the Blue Heron Institute, which is a relatively sane way to become a practitioner, even though there are obviously horror stories there. I can only shudder to imagine how bad it must be for the people where the Blue Heron Institute is wild and radical, but in the wrong direction for them.
So anything else you wanted to say about the arc or the story as a whole?
I mean, I do want to talk about the characters a bit. Like what's interesting is that while each section and each chapter obviously does focus on a different Kenneteer, I think Lucy's having like slightly less focus in this arc. But still has plenty of things going on, right? She has a whole thing with Ray, and just her worries in general, and with the party as well. That talk also between her and Verona was so nice. On the back of the truck as they were going.
Yeah, that was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it was really sweet. So even though that she's not really the like most main focus, right? Verona's having a lot more with her dad, and Avery's thinking a lot about the paths. She's still always relevant, and so is everyone else. I'm excited to see her take center stage again, though.
Yeah, well, especially now that we're heading back to Kennet, or we've headed back to Kennet, and that always puts the Carmine Beast in the back of our heads a lot more. Like I definitely tended to forget about Carmi every now and then in the school, and Lucy was always the one who was very driven towards that task specifically. She felt a responsibility to see that mission through. So she might, now that we're back home, and she actually has people she really cares about in this town. Well, so does Avery. It's just Verona who doesn't. Yeah. I mean, well, okay. Speaking of our three protagonists, who's your favorite? We make everyone pick their favorites.
Avery.
So immediate.
Yes, he was very confident about it. She was actually, I mean, at the very, very beginning, she was my least favorite just because I was like, ooh, Verona doing more magic-y stuff. I love that, right? I like the clever, I like the person that's interested in the magic and the fun stuff, right? But Avery's just so lovely and such a wonderful soul, and I love the paths too, and she is best girl.
Yeah,
well, okay, no,
sweet.
that's not true. Sorry, the best girl obviously goes to Snowdrop, obviously, but second best girl.
Well, Snowdrop is just part Avery, so
that's true. She's sort of an extension.
That's right. You're so right.
Helps Avery get across the line that she has Snowdrops. It is
yes,
part and parcel for her.
Yeah.
How about you, Clarence?
Well, I like that Avery brings this sort of like warmth and like this expectation that they're going to be a family sort of thing. Like the closeness of like friendship that becomes family. I feel like she kind of like exudes that. And that kind of like strengthens the kind of friendship between Lucy and Verona at the same time. I feel like in terms of like dynamics, she brought a really good thing to it. But I really like Lucy right now. I'm interested in what Verona's going to do in terms of like becoming not a person anymore, because that seems very exciting. But Lucy is like very like driven and like aware of like the like social happenings, I think, and then also aware of like the larger picture. So she like keeps me on track.
That's true.
As I get distracted with like what Verona's thinking about, and I feel like Lucy kind of like brings me back of like, oh yeah, there's this mystery going on.
Yeah, I think it was usually Lucy who would bring up the Carmine Beast in like the latter half of Arc 4, and I'd be like, oh yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was kind of the same as Verona. I'm off in school mentally, and then it's like, oh yeah, no, okay, that's right. There's like a plot here. What about Reuben? Where are you at? Because I think you were originally Avery, and then you switched to Team Lucy, didn't you?
Yeah, I really love Avery, but I'm still Lucy is still my number one at the moment, just because I just really admire her unending and uncompromising moral compass. That's just a trait that always makes me love a character. And Lucy is just 100% that character, and I'm just digging it.
Yeah,
you know, yeah. Lucy's great.
Yeah, I think that's why I like her, because she's so like brave. And willing to say things, and I am frightened of confrontation, and so I like she's like what is that, like a colloquial term? It's like goals or whatever. She's like, you know.
Wait, Claire. Did you just stumble for a colloquial term, and then you identify the colloquial term that you were stumbling for as she's goals? Is that what just happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
She is goals.
Yeah, she's
she
goals.
is big mood, 100%.
She is, yeah. To use another obscure term.
Elliot, are you still the only Verona stan that exists?
Yeah, I'm still here waving my Verona number one flag in the corner, I guess.
That's so funny to me because for me, Verona's the most conventional like favorite protagonist. I mean, okay, maybe I'm biased because she was my favorite protagonist at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But I mean, part of it is that she doesn't have that much outward emotion, I think. Even though obviously she's in great turmoil internally, but
yeah. I don't know. I've just from day one related to Verona the most.
Yeah. And her struggle with her dad and her mom too. That chapter, actually, I was very surprised. I thought this was a flashback at the beginning, with her mom, because like, oh, mom's here. And I guess that's part of it, of just like how shocking, to finally meet her mother, and also it's like not a big deal, like not like it's not a big deal in a good way. It's just
there's no like fanfare.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was very her mum to just show up,
right,
and just be here for a bit, and then be like, "Okay, I'm putting you back with your dad."
Yeah,
and it's like, he's actually really awful, and she's like, I'm trying to make something my problem.
Have fun with that.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
gosh,
there's no fanfare, but also no confrontation. I was expecting it would cause something to come to a head, but it just didn't, and that was quite tragic, you know?
Yeah.
I imagine if Verona had tried to confront her mum would just bail
and not come back. Like, I think that was her fear too. It's messed up. With her dad sending the text, I also was on the same page as Verona. I was like, is this like a real thing? Like, should we actually be worried? And then we got the snowdrop bit, and I was like, okay, god damn it, we should be worried. Oh, I don't want to leave the school. And then it turns out, actually, he's being just a huge drama queen, and he just wants to take revenge against her because that's how he functions.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that how you feel about that? I'm curious where you've landed on this specific instance of Verona's dad with the calling her back from school.
He reminds me of like the worst of all the authority figures I've ever had, and myself. He's Jerry from Rick and Morty, right? He's just someone you don't want to become.
Is that the one with the like?
He's the dad, and he sucks, and that's his whole character. Is that he's self-pitying all the time, and like a leech on everyone. Okay, Bernstein is not as bad. Okay, he's a person. And, obviously you can see why he got this way, but he's just, he cannot change. He refuses to change. And it's the kind of thing where, like, you just, at some point they need to help themselves, and he's not doing that. So, I mean, he kind of needs help if he, is bedridden, but also he's going to be bedridden for so much longer than he has to, because that's the kind of person he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the problem with someone like him, is that if you give him that inch, he's going to take a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, it's so hard because, like, someone like that, I feel sorry for him and I want him to get help. But you're right. There's a certain point where, and I think Nicolette started to talk about this with Melissa, didn't she? Where she's like, at a certain point, someone needs to be trying to help themselves, or I can't keep giving all this energy to them and having them squander it. And that's what Verona's dad is. Like, at a certain point, I feel like you sort of have to be like, okay, I can't do this.
Yeah. To be way too much. Like, I've been in a relationship like this, not with my dad or anything, but it's pretty fucking bad. And it's straight up like emotional abuse when it gets like this bad.
Mm.
And it's horrible because there's no actual like moral way to get out of it, because it's like, oh, you are abandoning them to a worse existence. Like, if Rona leaves and doesn't come back, like, he is gonna suffer more, and it sucks. And maybe he might not even be able to pull himself out ever, right? Maybe he does need the help, but there's no way to be sure. And it's pretty clear that, like, staying is not actually helping. It's helping him materially, but it doesn't actually get him to be better.
Yeah, if anything, it's stagnating him, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe he kind of needs a bit of a shock to his system almost to for him to have any chance of becoming a better person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and as readers of Worm, you would obviously both know about the foolproofness of utilitarianism. And, like, it's like the gain to Verona's, like, quality of life versus the decrease to his. Maybe she gets more gain and he gets lost. So utilitarian, it's better for her to leave.
Yeah.
QED.
Yeah. Well, that's.
Well,
go ahead.
It's like she's in this situation where she's like, these are the years of her life that she's like becoming, like I mean, not like leveling up or whatever, but
they're like
she's sort of like
years.
Yeah, these are her formative years of adolescence, and if she doesn't have that room to sort of expand herself and like kind of figure out who she wants to be, which I feel like she wouldn't if she remained in this situation, then I feel like ultimately in the long run, like, it'll be more trouble for her if she doesn't leave.
I mean, he's making her not want to be human anymore. Like,
yeah.
It's pretty bad. It's not a good dad move. Yeah.
I guess something else that's worth just checking in on is, how has your experience been reading the story, especially compared to, maybe our experience doing it with the show, or your own experience reading Worm with Decomposing Worm? I'm interested to hear whether there's been any change in the way you've been kind of reading the story as a result.
Well, we both read it differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clarence, go ahead.
I consumed it in about like 4 days.
Classic Larbo story experience.
Yeah.
So I feel like there were like there was a lot of movement that, in terms of like time, that I feel like I didn't really perhaps feel as much, just because I like didn't linger quite as much on anything. Although I would say the difference in Pale versus Worm is like the way that we like sit on the rhythm of reading.
Mm-hmm.
Where in Worm it's so fast paced, even if you're reading it slow, because it's so like physically confrontational, and everyone's like very analytical and like thinking through, and it's like very like you have to act in the instant. And I feel like with Pale, we have some like room to kind of feel out everybody's, like interpersonal relationships and the sort of atmosphere of it. Even though it's like they're trying to solve a murder, it's like there isn't that really like fast paced anticipation, I guess, or not anticipation, but like urgency, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Just like the way that it's written.
I think I know what you mean. Like, there's not that sense of at the end of every chapter, you're like, oh god, I need to see what's going to happen in this next instant where XYZ. Whereas, like, often I sort of end a Pale chapter and I'm keen to sit there and sort of mull over
Yeah.
what the ending implied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of space of like mulling over.
Mm-hmm. Like, you're still extremely interested in hearing more about the Pale,
Yeah.
right? But it's not the cliffhanger-esque. Something I noticed, and I talked about this before, I might have even mentioned it on Do the Right Thing when I was just like gushing, but just the fact that like it's very strange to me, the phenomena where, I mean, after Arc 1, that's a novel's worth of words. Arc 1 is a novel, okay, right? It's like what, 80,000 words or something? I don't actually know, but it was like long. But it did not feel like I had just read a novel. It felt like I had just read Arc 1, you know what I mean? Like it felt like just the beginning of a story, even though it's a lot longer than that. And I just found that so interesting, where I was like, this is not dragging, this is not feeling like a lot, and yet it's also not like ripping fast pace. So like, what the hell's happening? Like, how
They're just chock full of stuff.
Yeah.
These chapters. I don't know if I've said this on air, but like one of the things that caught me at least a bit off guard starting this was coming from Pact. The average chapter length in Pale is about double Pact,
Mhm.
and yet I feel like there's still, again, even more than double the amount of stuff to pull out. So that like it's just, it's like each week I feel like we're just having to not give some bits the
Mhm.
credit they deserve, just because there's so much to talk about in this story. Like it's long, but also just jam packed with stuff worth talking about.
Right. Yeah, and each thing that is worth talking about is also like incredibly complex. Like, I mean, you could talk on and
Yes.
on. I mean, we skimmed over so many, but talk on and on about each of the relationships between parents and kids. Actually, I find that so interesting that that's like such a strong focus in this.
Yeah, I feel like it was really interesting to see the variety of like familial construction of each of them, and then also like just the way that everyone communicates with each other, and like the openness of like Lucy's mother and Lucy, of like where she's like requesting her to like speak to her about how she feels and all of this, and then like I don't know, it just there's such a variety of like parenting styles, which shouldn't be surprising, I suppose, because we're spending time with like preteens, but it just seemed like very evident how distinct they all were.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially Verona's.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I think the very interesting thing with that as well is like, if Verona's standing as this example of somebody who's being let down by her parents, Lucy and to some extent Avery are also examples of how that can happen anyway. Like, I don't think anyone's going to criticize Lucy's mom. Her mom rocks. Avery's parents maybe aren't perfect, but
yeah, even so,
most of the time we see them, they're trying.
Yeah, definitely. They seem to be doing their best for the fact that their house is a pit of chaos.
It's gonna depend on how they handle the out of the closet situation.
True. We haven't seen her dad's reaction to that yet, have we?
No.
It seemed up in the air how that was going to go.
I'm expected to be disappointed.
Me too.
I'm not optimistic based on the way Avery was feeling about it, which is just like, although then again, like Sheridan was incredibly cool about it, and
well, yeah, I mean, like kids are much more likely to be cool about it, like always.
That's true.
She also seemed like she was going to be like the secretly cool sister before we kind of got those couple of interactions. I felt like a sister who like doesn't get super involved but is willing to like poke around. Like, I feel like that's the cool sister.
It's interesting though, because she's like the cool sister, but she's also like really lame, like really like unfortunate, like not in any like like not it's different from a nerdy way. It's in a sad way. It's like she's kind of given up on like doing stuff, and it's a bummer. But yeah, at least she's like decently decent.
Yeah, like I feel like there's going to be stuff to mine in the future for the way Sheridan feels like she's not. But the path Sheridan's walking down kind of feels like a slower version of what Avery went through before the story started. Like Sheridan has no friends. She's a bit disconnected. Like it seems so easy for her to just become the next Avery or another Alpy or something. Like, she needs someone to help her a bit and pick her up.
I think she needs someone to like help her want to try stuff.
And the only person who we've seen attempt that is Avery.
Right.
But like your little sister, it's a tough call for that to be the person who does that.
I feel like I have hope for her though. If that opportunity does come up, I think Sheridan would be someone to take that hand that's reaching. Like in the final instance, I think so.
I
hope so. Where Verona's dad would be the opposite.
Yeah.
Verona's dad grabs your hand and pulls you down.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to pull out a bit from the notes here that I'm not sure who wrote. It's just talking about interpretive magic and signs and signifieds and English class, and I don't understand it, but I'm keen.
Okay, so this is where I was like, okay, Clarence, let's talk about have it being English majors. So I want to talk about how the magic works, right? How it's interpretive, right? And so a little bit of a tangent into linguistics, literary linguistics, Saussurean linguistics. Anyway, the idea that language is built of signs and signifieds. So sign is like what the word is, right? A cat, the word cat, right? The letters CAT, that's a sign. And then signified is a cat, right?
Like the actual
right
concept of a cat.
Yes. And I probably shouldn't just go do an impromptu lecture because then it'll be a whole 15 minutes of this podcast. But
that's okay. That's why we got you. You two are the professionals. You're the Englishmen.
I took a literary theory class once for one semester, and I keep citing it. So
that's one more than me.
Well. Anyway, but so a sign by itself doesn't actually. There's no actual real connection between the sign and signified. There's no reason why the word cat means a cat and not a dog or whatever, other than it doesn't mean everything else. That is where meaning comes from. It comes from difference from everything else, right? A cat means cat because it doesn't mean house, car, microphone, whatever. Anyway, so I thought this was relevant in how the magic works here, right? There's all these symbols written down, and they only mean the thing that they mean because they are different from everything else, and that's how specifying works, right? And how they clarify their intent by putting down a sign and then putting down other signs that mean okay, well, it can't mean anything that doesn't mean these two things, right? And getting more specific that way, and just generally how magic is English class in the other verse.
Yeah, I mean the other verse rewards English majors, which I always love.
Oh, me too. Anything that rewards me is great.
Well, additionally too, because language is so full of gaps and voids and where it's always an approximation of whatever we're trying to say or whatever we're trying to convey. And I feel like their magic is very much like that, where they have a thing that they want to happen and they generally know how to get that thing to happen, but there's always room for something else to perhaps occur. There's
if they
pockets,
right? If they summon something, right? If you wanted to summon a hammer or whatever, right? You could just continue specifying, but you would never get exactly a specific thing that you had in your head, right? You might you could tell wood handle, iron head, right? Decorated with these kind of sigils, this kind of style. Potentially, get more and more specific like that. Does this kind of ability, but it will never be there's always the gaps are filled in, always.
Yeah. Although what's interesting about the spirits in the other verse is they kind of depending on how much they like you, they may fill in those gaps exactly as you're picturing, because they seem to be able to determine intent and stuff. They can tell when people are lying, so they can kind of mind read. to some degree.
Yeah, that's so strange.
There is this kind of ability, like, if they want to, they can give you exactly what you're picturing, and from that, you communicate that broken, incomplete picture, and they will fill in the gaps if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the brokenness of English is something that this story and Pact like really teach you. Like the stuff people are able to get away with while technically telling the truth is just like this language is a joke.
Yeah, I feel like that's been on my mind this whole time. It's like every time that they interact with anyone, I'm like, how can they be saying the truth but also saying nothing?
Lying. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, whenever the fairy talk, it's like, why even
fairies.
try? Like nothing they say needs to have any grounding in reality at all.
I feel like if I didn't spend time in all of the like paths and the ruins and everything, like I would go hang out with the fairies. Even though I know it would be I know it would be detrimental, but it just sounds so fascinating.
It would be fascinating. I mean, Guillermo is actually like really growing on me. I know he probably shouldn't, but like he's saying like full on like I plan to be good or something like that, like I know that's also something you can wiggle out, but like there was a couple of statements specifically I was like, okay, that's like that seems honorable.
I know. God, I hope it doesn't turn around.
Yeah. So for a related thing, related to more English stuff. So there's a lot of metaphors that just people who study the English language in various forms, like this particular side that I'm gonna be talking about is more like a technical communication thing of what metaphors we use to describe how language works, because that impacts how we end up talking about it and thinking about it. So like one example that I'm not talking about specifically here, but just for a different one, is the window pane metaphor, right? Of like, how clear do you want your language to be? Where technical communication, business writing wants it to be a clear glass window where you don't even notice that it's there. So you can just see what's on the other side, the meaning on the other side as clearly as possible, right? Whereas to extend the metaphor, if you were to make the language very colorful and dense and harder to understand, it might be more like poetic, right? And you might have like a stained glass window where like the language is the point and the meaning you see through the lens. Anyway, but one of the more functional metaphors is this packing and unpacking metaphor, where there's a sender, the message itself, the package, and the receiver. So the sender packages up the message, right? They take their meaning that's in their head and they put it into a box using language, and then they send it. And then there's the like message itself, and then there is the receiver who unpacks it, right? And each step there, the sender, receiver, and the message itself are points of interference where stuff can go wrong and where miscommunication happens. So the sender might package it pretty badly and make it hard to understand. The message might be lost on the way in some way or another, and the receiver might unpack it wrong. And so I was relating this to how like magic in the Otherverse works, where there's a thing that they actually do, there's the intent that they have, and then there's also audiences, and each one of those can be influenced.
Yeah, I really like that as a sort of model for thinking about. Like, I'm just even thinking, if I wanted to fight a practitioner, those are the three things I suppose you can try and interfere with: their ability to speak, their ability for the spirits to hear them, or the ability for the spirits to understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we have any other thoughts about leaving a mark or the story in general so far?
Oh yes, I had a few thoughts about just in terms of like leaving a mark specifically, and the trio going to school versus gathering knowledge from others, because the way that they're learning is very different in the two different spaces, and even the way that they're like taught to think about it is very different in the two different spaces. Where like in Kennet, it's they're more of like a community of practice, where they're sort of getting all this information and having to kind of sort through it like piecemeal and sort of figure out from a variety of different individuals that are not necessarily like fully trustworthy, information that could be used against them, but there's like there's all these like caveats, and they're like placed in this very specific mindset of like how to view others. And I thought it was really interesting when we kind of interned to the school and everyone else had a very different view and mentality of like how to interact and how to think about others. Yeah. And it was much more like their knowledge was more like codified, I guess.
Yeah, it's less personal, isn't it? It's more, and you see that with like, Lucy gets special tutoring from Guillerme, whereas she gets kicked out of Ray's class for like breaking the mold a little bit. It's so much more rigid at the Blue Heron Institute.
All right, I guess that's our discussion of the main points from Leaving a Mark. Now, of course, we have a few other things to run through before we wrap up. First of all,
hold on. Wait, are you skipping past this bit in the notes?
Oh yes, sorry. Let's jump into that.
So because Clarence, you have not read Pact, right?
No, I haven't.
Yes, so this is something I put all of our guests who have not read Pact through a series of questions.
He also
First of all, why haven't you?
In the past 4 days. I think that's also something to note. Very new.
That's a monumental effort. It's like,
yeah.
A week or two after finishing Worm in an insane time period, it's like, okay, Pale now.
It was fun. It had a very different like jaunt to it. So it was a nice like variety.
I mean, just as a quick, this isn't a question I had written down, but I'm curious, like jumping from Worm, which was finished 7-ish years ago now, up to Pale, like did you feel the difference in sort of Wildbow's writing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I feel like I could feel immediately kind of how different like the kind of in reading space. But I also could feel that when I like jump from the beginning of Worm to like the end.
True.
I feel like it's very evident how much is like shown and kind of filed away, and like that sort of like tracing paper sort of feel to it. I think felt much more like mature in terms of writing ability.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's been what 8 years of publishing at least twice a week. I guess it's not surprising.
That's a pretty consistent.
He's written like 5 million words now. It's ludicrous.
But yeah. So Clarence, I guess as somebody who hasn't read Pact, I'm interested to know: did it ever feel in Pale like you were, a bit out of step for not having read Pact? Because this was pitched as an alternative entry point to the world, but obviously the rest of us had read Pact, so we had expectations coming in. I'm wondering if you ever felt like you were a step behind or something.
I think I definitely felt a little bit like I was unsure of like the weight of some like symbolic elements, and the sort of significance. Particularly, I think during their awakening, I think I was like unsure about like how it was going to work and all this, but because all three of them kind of jumped in, all three of the main characters jumped in to the world at the same time that I did, I feel like there was enough like information kind of coming in every time. Like there was enough world building that I didn't feel lost, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Good to know
now,
that. Yeah,
you go.
No, I was just going to say, good to know that it feels like you're not missing out on too much.
Yeah, and don't worry, the awakening ceremony has been a topic of much debate among Pact readers as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I understood everything.
Also, Nicolette used a living thing in her ritual. What? Huh?
I don't know. You two may not have listened. We just covered Mile End, which was a campaign Wildbow ran, and the awakening ritual they did in that was just completely different.
Yeah, again, very different.
Did.
Yeah.
What?
It's insane.
Okay. Well, that's I'll listen to that tomorrow.
It seems like the awakening, like it seems very like specific from what I gathered of like their description of it, and then some of their encounters.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like it was more of like it was more individual than kind of universal.
I almost compare it to where I've landed after reading Mile End and Pale so far in Pact is I'd compare it to an essay where there's these important structural beats you have to meet.
Okay.
Like, you have to have those 5 elements or whatever, and you have to have your personal things, but there's so much room for you to like sort of tweak exactly how those are expressed. So you need that overall structure, but you change exactly how they take form, I suppose. And you can play with the structure a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe return to this in the Pact section too.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that with you there. So Clarence, no pressure, because you just read Worm and you've just read a whole bunch of Pale. But I'm curious if reading Pale makes you like just as keen to read Pact, or like are you more keen to read Pact? Like where does sort of Pact sit on your priority of things you might want to read now?
It does seem like I would want to read it more, just because I like entering like worlds that I kind of know a little bit about.
Sure.
So I feel like I would feel more comfortable entering and reading Pact now than I did before.
Yeah, well, I guess as a follow-up to that, is there anything specific you are expecting, or like specific questions you're expecting to get answered in Pact? Like, I'm just wondering, what has reading Pale made you think about Pact without knowing anything else?
Does it have the same? I suppose I wonder if it has the same like rhythm to it, of like that sort of easing into the situation. And I know this is sort of like dictated by the solving of the Carmine Beast's murder, but like I don't know if there's a similar sort of governing structure to it.
To the plot, you mean?
Yeah, to the plot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I just like
no comment on any of that, I guess.
A great question, a very good question. One I wish I could answer, but I can't.
Yeah. So frustrating. Every time I make any sort of prediction.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry to put you
only
through
silence.
that again. I remember going through that right after finishing Pact with some of the story and being like, "Why am I back here again?"
Oh boy.
Yeah. So actually, this is one last quick question for both of you. What's your opinion on this extra material that Wildbow's introduced in Pale? Like how is it adding to the experience?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's utterly. I mean, I adore it. It's not something I pull out and show people all the time. It's probably very annoying, but I'm like, look at these diagrams. Like, doesn't this look cool? Because it is. It's fascinating, and it's interludes, except even more unique and different. And honestly, I don't understand how you could possibly have the time to design all of these things that are like in depth, and they have like some of them have little secrets. I want to talk about Snowdrop actually before we move fully on, but like the one with the inventory, right? The fork thing. I was texting a friend. I was like, what is happening here? They hadn't read it either. I was just like, it's wonderful. Fork not depicted. It's so yeah.
I would say that the extra material is probably the reason that, like, the first primary reason that I wanted to read Pale, because me and Matias were talking about like intratextual materials, which I love so much. That's like my favorite thing in any sort of fictional story, is like intratextual materials, and here they were. It's like a major part of this tale, so I was like very excited that they're such a prevalent piece.
That is one thing that I'm interested to see that Wildbow has kind of done more and more of, is the, breaking the format of just being a, hey, I write 10,000, 100,000,000 word chapter every, twice a week, right? Like in Worm, there was, I think, one format break, which is the 4-word chapter.
Well, and the forum, the Parahumans Online chapters.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's a good point.
Which I'll let you finish, but relevant.
No, but what I was just going to say is it's interesting that he seems to be doing that more and more and more now, and the bonus materials are the natural extension of that, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, so related, I know that you two are aware, or I'm sure you are, but Clarence, you might not have known, on the Parahuman subreddit, he's been doing a series of role-played Parahumans online forum posts. It's been fascinating. So basically, he will write the top post, the post on the Parahumans online website, right? It will be a post on Reddit, and everyone in the comments has to act like a denizen of Earthbet at the time of posting, and it's fascinating.
Interesting.
It's seeing a live play. It's wonderful. I started reading through them, but honestly, they're so there's like 30 of them at this point, and each one has like 100 comments or more, and so it's actually a lot to read, especially because people write like whole diatribes in character, and there's wonderful like little in jokes too that develop in particular threads. It's utterly delightful, and I just find it utterly fascinating as a just as a creation, right? It has the basically everyone in the comments has read the entirety of Worm, right? And possibly Ward as well. And so they know a lot about this world as well. And all of them, or a lot of them are holding back too, like really actually getting into character and, not acting as if they are like a character in the world that has read the entire book, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's so interesting. I don't even know what to classify this as a work.
I'm like continually interested in the community that has developed around Wildbow's works, because he's so prevalent still that the interaction between author and reader is so interactive, and it's so unique and interesting to watch occur.
I want to see someone do an essay on Worm or any of the other works that treats the comment section under each chapter as part of the text that they are analyzing. Because a lot of people do go and read the entire comment section as they go. Not everyone. I think it's some proportion of readers, but that affects their experience. And I'm pretty sure they're time locked, right? You can't go back to chapter 1 of Worm and leave a comment, right? I don't think.
I think Wildbow closes them at some. I know, because Pact, we used to dive into the comments for Pact as we were reading it, and I would often have to stop scrolling about 2/3 of the way down because it would be people who were reading it
really
way later. So certainly Pact didn't quite get that treatment all the time, but most of them were safe. You could tell someone, presumably even Wildbow, had at various times gone through and culled spoilery
really
comments.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's definitely on Worm. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's spoiler free. Once the new chapter comes out, there's no more comments.
Yeah. So you could go through and sort of participate in the live speculations and stuff, except it wouldn't be live at all. It's just it's so.
Yeah. I don't know. I also am just. I feel like that it's exacerbated by everything being serial, which is such an interesting way to read a tale. Is anticipating every moment.
I do quite like the vibe that Wildbow's stories have built up of people will jump into the comments and make predictions and all this stuff. I really do think that is a part of what makes it such an enjoyable experience. Not just because that the way that Wildbow writes also kind of lends itself to making predictions, right? Because he'll often have twists or use reworking of themes thematically throughout things, or 3 beats of things across an arc or across a story. I think it just lends itself so nicely to discussion that it's you really are missing out if you don't engage with the community or the comments in some kind of way.
Right. Hopefully the podcasts are a good other form of that for those that can't in the moment.
Yeah, and I guess the reason we're doing this is because it's an extension of that vibe of, you read a chapter of a Wildbow story and you kind of just want to talk about it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why the show
so much
exists.
To half transition. So the Snowdrop chapter is so fucking funny. Oh my god. Oh my god. I do it almost every single paragraph. I was fighting the urge to copy and paste it and send it to everyone who would listen, because it was just so funny. The entire way through. And there's a lot of Pale that makes me want to do that too.
Yeah, I've multiple times in my live reads of this had to been okay, this is the last thing, for the Snowdrop one, it was this is the last just haha Snowdrop's hilarious quote that I can pull, because I'm just pulling every other line and this is taking forever, and so just assume that I'm doing that because I can't keep doing it, and it's probably not interesting for you guys anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I laughed out loud multiple times. Isn't that's wild? I don't do that while I'm reading.
You don't laugh out loud when you're reading?
No, almost never.
Oh.
No, I have the same experience.
That is where
as
I find
Matias.
glee.
I'm with Clarence on this one. I laugh out loud all the time while I'm reading or watching stuff or whatever.
I feel like I don't laugh almost ever, but except that, I mean, and this happened, we're recording this after the 5.B chapter has come out, and that was a chapter that I laughed during multiple times. I won't spoil it, I won't say why, but and it is something that I find is the case with Wildbow stories. It's just, and I think what it is I find myself having such a deep connection to these characters that I can laugh at situations that they would laugh at, whereas I feel like I don't have a deep connection to characters that aren't as well fleshed out in other media, and so I don't get into a situation where I'm like genuinely enjoying something as though I'm hearing a story told to me by a friend of mine,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember other books that have made me laugh. It's like any like conventional book, like any book within the bounds of like normal tones, like a Wild Bow, like normal stories, right? That's not like intentionally super dark or super funny. I probably only laugh like once or twice, at the funniest moment in the entire book, right? I remember Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I laughed a lot. But that book is also like really, really fucking funny.
It's a comedy.
Yeah, it's a comedy. So but yeah, no, I don't, but then again, I don't get that affected by emotions right now in general, so.
I feel like I just get excited about small things. Like, I feel like it was in one of the last couple of chapters, but he used the term morass as a descriptor, as a noun descriptor, which was so exciting to me. I like sat down and like wrote it out, and I feel like there's just small things that are very exciting about reading.
I love you, Clarence. Yeah.
What a beautiful sentiment. Should we talk about the arc title, Leaving a Mark? Because, of course, one of the things that we like to do is overanalyze these arc titles and see if we can figure out exactly what they're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, I liked your pet theory a lot.
Yes. Also, just I'll kick us off by saying the definition of leaving a mark is to do something that will be remembered or that makes you famous or successful. Like basically to do something that is important or meaningful. So Reuben, do you want to kick us off with some of your interpretations of this title?
Yep, sure. I thought we'd start with the normal ones and then get to my ones, but we can just start pulling the deep end. That works.
We'll start from the bottom and work up.
Yeah, okay, perfect. One of the ones that we had talked about before was the theory that we haven't heard Fiona's dad's first name, and maybe it's Mark, and then it's going to be a play on words where she finally cuts contact with him. That unfortunately did not pan out, and we're all very sad about that. And so I was trying to think what other things could it be, and the only other meaning of mark I could think of was like, how for like con artists they call the people that they're conning their mark. I don't really know how that applies. Like Alexander's maybe conning people, and it doesn't really make any sense. But
it's
I'm
worth
sure there's
putting
something
down,
in there,
just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Just in case I can say I knew it. I was 100% confident.
Anyone else?
I just had like questions to ask because I don't actually. I mean, I feel like an arc title like that will make us want to ask, what is the mark that the kind of tiers are leaving, right? In the places that they go, and I had trouble thinking of stuff. I know they're leaving an impression on everyone at the school, right? Just because they're actually very powerful and they're so blasé about it. They power up the doll and it straight up knocks out.
I know.
Yeah.
And they had just like a moment to make sure he was fine, and they were like, you know what? We're just gonna keep doing this.
Yeah. And they were like, hey, maybe we should like they were so proud that they were smug. That's the word. That they were smug that they were like, oh yeah, it's no big deal for us. It's like, girls, No, that's like it's clearly like you're being unusual. You don't want
It
to
felt very
get called
much
out
like
that.
like the like hair flip sort of, like
Yeah.
or like the shoulder or whatever.
I loved Avery's little I mean, not to brag, but we do this all the time.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
It's a brag.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as well as what marks they might be leaving, which like is weird because it feels, they're still 13-year-olds who are new to this world. They haven't finished leaving any marks they might have already left. Like just the marks left on them as well. Like I think
Yeah.
we sort of see, like, we see Verona try to kindle a relationship and not really go for it, and there's a mixture of feelings around her dad with that and with it later. Lucy is so it's very obvious with her. She wears that stuff on her sleeve, and she's turning that into shaping herself with Guilherme to become someone who fights back or doesn't cede ground at least.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's a really good note of that. And Avery leaving marks on herself with the glamour as well.
So she's literally giving herself check marks.
Yeah.
That is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Oh, and Avery left Snowdrop, or left her mark on Snowdrop, kind of.
Yeah, where she's kind of
the other way around.
Imbued herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I can't wait to see where that continues to go.
God, questions of agency and like where identities come from is so exhausting. I can't. I deal with that 24/7.
Well, I think it's super interesting that their perspective is very different than anyone else around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't actually notice until like the entire Snowdrop chapter was over that like she actually was like she tells the truth and other people hear lies. I was like, wait a second. I only noticed like halfway through. I was like, wait a second. She's actually telling truths. Did something happen? Why is nobody noticing that this weird thing has happened? It was dumb.
Yeah.
It was a very fun though. I love once you realize that getting to do like the reverse Snowdrop on everything she says was just a very fun change of pace. I love that chapter so much.
Yeah, it was good. It was see, okay, here's the thing. It's balanced with like being utterly terrified for her, right? Because we've set up how bad the brownies can get, right? And like the chapter before when they're all settling in to the school, I was like, oh god, Verona's gonna accidentally thank them and it's gonna be a horrible thing. I was like, it doesn't feel like it's gonna happen right now. Like the pacing does not feel like right for like this to be the horrible moment. However, like oh no. And then we passed. It's fine. All right. Next day, and then Snowdrop is. I was like, well, she's gonna say no, thank you, and it's gonna say thank you, and then she's dead, or something. It was so nerve wracking. But then it's a comedy chapter, so
I feel like I wasn't anticipating death, but I was very excited to
injuries.
Perhaps see them.
I think that's what I really like about Wildbow Works, just to sort of speak generally, is like in just about any book, you can be pretty confident the protagonist isn't going to die. But Wildbow like puts costs on his protagonists.
Yeah.
In a way that not many other authors are as bold with. And so like there is always this sense for me of like I am willing to believe that at just about any point there will be some big cost. Like Snowdrop may not die, but something terrible will happen to her that will, leave me scarred as well as her for the rest of the book.
Oh man.
Do you guys think one of the Kennedys is going to die? Can you imagine?
Oh no! I'm going to say no. No, just straight out. No.
I refute.
I don't think it's.
I do think there will be some sort of transformation.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a Wildbow story if someone didn't stop being human.
True.
I mean, well, Verona's trying. She's doing her best.
I'm so excited to see what happens.
Yeah, excited. Yes, definitely.
Cautiously excited.
One other interpretation of leaving a mark was, are any clues being left behind, right? Any marks that they have stumbled upon. I didn't find any, but potentially.
No, yeah. This is going to be such a fun story to read because I'm sure there's so many obvious hints Oh, just completely going over my head.
That's the thing. Okay, so the skip ahead. I know you guys wanna ask this, but the who done it, right? So it's like by the rules of mysteries, right? It has to be someone we've already met by this point, right?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Who the hell? I can't. Like, no one feels right at all. No one feels like.
Yeah, they all feel like just enough off that it could be them.
But like,
you know?
It doesn't feel right for it to be any of them. Like,
No,
if it was Narcissa
none of them,
right
none
now,
of them fit exactly.
then I'd be like, oh, it's Narcissa. And now if it's like Matthew and his wife, what's her name again?
Edith.
Thank you. It's like, really, them? But then
But
why
have,
are they
like,
how they are?
Interesting tension.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, yeah, it's just like none of them feel right to have murdered a primordial beast or whatever the Carmite beast was. You know, certainly not goblins.
No, yeah, I feel like they're definitely like marked off.
Yeah, the goblins are about the only ones I'm confident in saying. I don't think they, except maybe Toadswallow. There's something going on with Toadswallow. Listeners of the podcast have heard me say that enough that I don't need to. Yeah, I don't know. I just there's something about Toadswallow.
Charles, if it was Charles, it's not even like, oh, the butler did it. No, it's like the dog did it. You know, like it's just it doesn't feel right.
Ouch.
Well, I just mean on like the power level. You know.
Oh, poor Charles.
Yeah, poor Charles.
Rough.
Do not envy his existence. And they're like, oh yeah, let's just ask him if he's okay with like taking on Melissa's pain. It's like, oh, Charles already has enough pain. Why?
My favorite thing about that though is even he agrees that he got a good deal for being forsworn, which is like, what do the others get? You know, like Jesus.
There's a bit where Nicolette is talking to Avery, and she's like, "Oh, you thought the you thought the wolf like tearing into you as a bunny for an entire day was bad, honey. If you did that for 1,000 years, it would not even come close to some of the stuff out there." It's dark.
I still love the way the fairy was set up for us as well. Like, I think it was Guillermo was like, "Hey, Nicolette, if you come into town, I'll give you everything you ever want," and then she just booked it. This was like enough. And I just that's still my favorite way of like hyping up how terrifying something is. Yeah, like so does anyone else have any leaving a mark interpretations?
Yes. I was thinking perhaps like in terms of leaving a mark of like they in this chapter they like have deliberately set off from their like comfort zone, quote unquote, I suppose, in Kennet, right? They've physically left. And so all the like spaces and like rules that they know are kind of tossed to the side. Which I feel like, I mean, they're not tossed to the side, but like they're entering into a space that they don't necessarily know. Which I feel like has left a mark upon the Kennet others. So not necessarily upon them as much as those that have cautiously been trusting them.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, I mean, we could probably sit here all day. There's so many different angles you could probably look at it through. I think somebody mentioned the school as well. They're already starting to leave their mark there by standing up for the rights of others. I guess, or one last one from me. Speaking of the school, the Blue Heron Institute, they don't give out grades, so they've left marking behind.
You want to save this one for last, huh?
You wanted to save this
Finish
one?
on a high note.
You were very excited about it.
Yeah, it's a good one. Though. I like it. All right. Well, let's put that behind us now.
Interpretation.
I guess, is there any final thoughts that anyone has on the arc before we begin to wrap stuff up?
I want to go back to school. That's all.
Aren't you over it yet?
Which one?
The fun one, duh. Of course.
Yeah. How can you even say which one, Elliot? Come on. Boring American school or cool
Canadian school?
That's part of your
true. Yeah. You guys in the USA think you're the only people who can be called America.
Listen, there's a lot more people on this
Okay,
continent.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna push back against that. I think that's a silly arbitrator. Like, this has been a thing for a very, very long time. I'm pretty sure Americans have, like, at this point, fully established that America means the United States of America. Yes, there's other Americas, but like, it's not. Don't call me out for calling it America.
I feel like it's only like insular. Like other people in the Americas are very pointedly, like they pointedly point out
they're not America.
that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look, if there was ever a time to argue bullshit semantics, it's in this story.
That's true.
Okay, here's the thing. I will stop referring to I will stop assuming that American things means stuff from the United States of America as soon as someone comes up with a way to say United Statesian that sounds good. Like,
yeah, that's not like 8 syllables long.
Yes. Yeah.
No, it's interesting because I've sort of, the talk of coming back to Kennet in the story has been, the whole thing was, we took the ruins so we can get back before tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I've read enough Wildbow stories where I'm sort of sitting here and I'm like, so odds that they make it back to the school
of course
any
0%. Yeah.
So yeah, it's I don't know what to expect from Arc 5 like long term. So I'm very interested to see like where the Kenneteers are 2 days from the end of Arc 4.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that's... Oh, wait, no. One last thing before we finish up. Does the Blue Heron Institute have its own class ranker group, do you guys think? And if so, who's the highest and who's the lowest?
Oh, I mean, come on. Okay, we obviously know who the highest is. That's
Ulysses, right?
Ulysses, obviously.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Who's the
Louise?
They're so intense about it.
Yeah, I love how everybody who sees him for the first time is like, God, he's so hot.
See, I could really picture him though, like because of that. Like I'm, like a, if not Timothy Chalamet, something like somewhat like pretty boy, right?
I hate to say it, but I think Jessica's probably at the bottom of the ranker, right? Just because it seems like everybody hates her.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to be very
very popular.
Yeah.
Well,
popular.
Avery, no, because Avery would vote for her, just like she voted for Pam, just because she loves the girls that don't get enough attention.
True.
Also, she's gay, so.
Also, like, I think Jess would be right near the bottom, but I also think like she'd give 0 shits. I mean, that's almost by design.
Mm-hmm.
She does not want to associate with this school more than
I
she
think
has
she
to.
wouldn't participate.
Yeah, that too. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Zach and his hot girl totems probably wouldn't do so great.
Or maybe
unless
he would
unless he put a bunch of them out.
Yeah.
I bet one of his hot babe totems would get more votes than he would.
Oh, teenagers.
Oh gosh.
All right, now that we've discussed that, we can wrap up the episode.
So the first thing we do right before the actual outro is we force all of our guests to make bold and specific predictions.
Mm-hmm.
So now's your chance. Who done it?
Who did it? Yeah.
Well, there's always a couple of obvious answers, right? The butler did it. There's no butler here. Not applicable.
No. The dog
everyone did it.
Is the other one that everyone also thinks.
That's the other one, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to roll that one out. Everyone did it, which is perhaps true. Perhaps. However, not everyone did it, right? There's clearly some people we can roll out. So she did it to herself.
I mean, they wouldn't. Would they just like not? If they all did it, would they even bring someone in to investigate?
Yeah, I think for appearances, probably. But maybe she did it to herself. Maybe the Carmine Beast sought out the Hungry Choir and was like, "Hey, I'm tired. Take me out." And then like howled at the moon and got taken out.
Interesting. Okay, so the Carmine Beast done it.
Yeah, the Carmine Beast.
Sort of a disappearance act.
Mm-hmm. But why did she do it? That's the real question.
Yeah, I feel like the motivation.
What if it's like
people is?
What if she just wanted? Wait, what if she was sick of being a beast like a dog? So she's getting Charles to whip her up a new form so she can be the Carmine. I don't know, snake. I don't know. What? Insert relevant animal here.
For other predictions, I have a couple. I think we are going to see a dream or a nightmare from one of Alpi's trips, I guess. One guess I have is that one of our main characters, if not one of the Kenneteers, then maybe someone like Nicolette or something, will need a dream trip to fix them or something, and we'll follow Alpi into one of them, because we almost did, right? It almost seems like
I hope so.
we had it teased, right?
Yeah.
And so since we didn't, I think it's going to happen eventually.
I would love a whole chapter from Alpi's perspective.
Oh yes, that would be nice to do. Well, yeah, we'll either all the Kenneteers go into one, or we'll see it from Alpi's perspective, I think.
That would be sick. Okay, Clarence, time for your...
I don't know. I still feel like there's some, like unspoken tension between Edith and Matthew that I feel like is somehow related, but I don't know. I don't know. Because they're like seemingly like okay, but they have all these like snide little comments that they make to each other that I feel like could be... I don't think they would have done it together. It would have been either or.
Matthew is the one who we've seen take people's memories away.
Mm-hmm.
So him being peeved at Edith for doing it and forcing him to take her memories of it away so she has plausible deniability would fit.
Yeah,
True.
So I feel like there's some mysterious tension there. But I don't know. I also feel like perhaps Miss shall return. Maybe I'm just being hopeful. But I feel like there's always like an 11th hour someone returns. I feel like that would be Miss.
We had a prediction come in a while ago that she'd faked her own death, which I thought was very fun.
She does seem very connected.
Yeah. Also, do you picture her coming back as the person who did it, or with the clue we need to figure out who did it?
I think if she returned, it would be she would have the clue.
Okay.
Yeah.
She has to. It'd be weird for her to show up again and be like, "Hey guys, I'm back, but I don't have anything to do with the mystery."
No. My alternative was that she was the one who did it. Like she comes back and I was like, "It was me."
I feel like if she's the one who did it, like they'll have to go in and find her.
Well, and then sorry, I just went through a short little cascade of
Let's hear it. These are always the best theories.
So she was always looking for a role, right? Like that, or no, she's not looking for a role. She's concerned about being pushed into a role. That the universe is sort of conspiring because she's lost. She doesn't have a role right now, and in Kennet, she can sort of maintain like a not role sort of thing. But if she were to go into like the Hungry Choir, she would like become part of the act, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was her concern. So maybe this is sort of a like intentional like way for her to assume a role that she's choosing, right? To take agency over that and be like, okay, I'm going to become the Carmine Miss, I guess. The Carmine person. There might not be enough.
My extension to this theory is that makes her the baddie, and we have to stop her, right?
But does it like actually make her bad though?
Well, she did a murder.
Well, okay, but this is the other verse. Like, it's an other. It's a giant beast too. Like,
sure,
lots of things to get murdered.
What I want to say is, if Miss has set this all up so she as a Lost can take the position, and we have to thwart those plans, there's another Lost who we now have on hand, who's already talking about taking Miss's place.
Oh no!
The Carmine Snowdrop.
The Carmine Opossum. Oh, okay. Oh, I could tell it in your voice.
Fear her.
She rolls with a mighty fork. Mighty rusty fork. She had a butter knife, but not anymore.
Everybody just seems so like tired though. All of the others of Kennet seem very tired.
That's true.
So I don't know which of them is like, I'm ready to take on more responsibility.
Yeah, which one of them even wants to, right? Like, John doesn't want to. I doubt Matthew or Edith would want to.
Edith maybe just because she's constantly being, like, she's got the doom that's tearing Matthew apart. She has to do stuff to like fortify herself because she's kind of constantly disintegrating a bit.
I don't think Matthew would like that though. If that was true, then like he would have to not know because she would change like too much.
Yeah.
And then there's the two fairy who, like, I mean, I guess either, but like it's not that strong of a feeling either for either of them. So
they're the candidates where it's like it's too obvious.
Yeah.
They're the Machiavellian masterminds, of course. But is that what Pablo wants us to think?
Yeah. That's the problem with fairies, is it's layers of head games all the way down, so you can't ever be sure that you've gotten to the bottom right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hold that it's miss, and I don't think they should drain her after she takes the seat. That is my official position. Less fun than she did it to herself, but
I feel like my tentative position is Edith.
Okay,
cool. Well, let's lock those in, and we'll see.
Yep. See
if either of you are vindicated, and whenever this story finishes.
All right. And that, I think, brings us to the end of the show. So, Matias and Clarence, thank you for coming on the show. Now, you did tease something. Are we gonna get that reveal?
Yeah. So, Decomposing Worm finished today.
Soon.
We still have to edit the episode, but we were thinking about what we're going to be doing after, and I think we're ready to announce. Clarence, would you like to?
Oh, I get to say it?
Yeah, of course.
How exciting! I don't have any fanfare. It's just called Protecting Twig.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll be looking at Twig finally. Yes, Twig is going to have the attention it deserves. It's happening. It's happening.
I'm very excited about it because Matias has like talked about it a lot.
Yes.
And I'm absolutely in love with Mary Shelley and the concept of like biopunk. So it sounds cool.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm excited for this on my, just because Reuben and I covered Arc 1 very briefly as part of our pilot season, and that was exactly what jumped out to me too. Clarence was like the Frankenstein references and the biopunk, and this will hopefully get me off my ass and reading Twig.
It's also a worthy read. It's my favorite actually of all the Wildbow works. It was the first one I started reading while it was releasing. Although I didn't actually keep up. I definitely like binged to catch up and then noticed that it wasn't done and then like stopped for like a year. But yeah, no, it's my favorite.
Yeah. Awesome. I can't wait for this. So yeah.
If you haven't read Twig and you have any reading time left over after reading Pale, do read Twig. It's absolutely worth it.
And if people want more Matias and Clarence talking about stories, you can go and check out Decomposing Worm.
That's right. And you can follow us on Twitter at Decomposing Pod. So we'll probably keep that one as we go into Twig. We don't have a timeline on it, by the way. So just eventually dissecting Twig, but don't expect it in the near future. We're not picking up like next week. Okay. We'll be taking a little break.
I mean, that is the cry of somebody exhausted of stories.
It's our own fault. Yeah.
The month Reuben and I took off between Deep Impact and starting this was very valuable. I wholeheartedly recommend.
Well, did you even take a real break though? You guys did so much stuff in between.
There was a month where we did nothing. It was great.
That was a good month.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Yes, this was much fun.
Having a way for me to bully Clarence into reading Pale. Appreciate that.
That's what we're all about here.
It was very enjoyable.
That's the whole point of this podcast.
Bullying. I mean, if we learned anything from Worm, right? It's that bullying is effective.
Bullying is a good
solution.
idea.
Yeah.
If our listeners want more of any of the shows on the Doof Media Network, that includes, of course, Decomposing Worm, our show, Power Reflections, and all the other great shows, you can go to doofmedia.com, the website where you can find links to all of the shows and all kinds of miscellaneous things.
Yes, we're also on Twitter, which is at MediaMG Podcast, much like Matias and Clarence. We're keeping our old at there for our show. That's where my live reads are, and that's also where you can find out when the episodes are coming out. this episode's coming out when our normal episode usually does, and so that means our normal episode is coming out during the nebulous midweek-ish time that the Reflections episodes usually come out. So the best place to find out when our next episode's coming is on that Twitter.
Yep. If you want to support the shows on the Duff Network, you can go to patreon.com/duffmedia and become a patron. We had a recent influx of patrons, which I think is a good thing. And if you want to become one of them, go to that website.
Yes. And don't forget to stop by Wildbow's Patreon. Patreon.com/Wildbow. That's a good place. I mean, we've spoken a bunch today. He's written 70 billion-ish words over the past 8 years. It's phenomenal the amount of quality content he's put out, and if you can afford to reward him for that, you should.
Yeah, 100%. Why don't you leave your mark on Wildbow's Patreon by making the number of patrons go up?
By one.
Go to patreon.com/Wildbow to do that. All right, and that's the show. Or is it? There's also a secret extra bit at the end here. Now that we've kicked out Clarence, we're going to go back to Pact and talk about some things with Pact spoilers.
Do you spell it BACT, Backed?
Backed
yes.
to Pact. Yes, exactly.
Okay, good.
So Matias, you said you had some things that you wanted to talk about that required some Pact spoilers.
Oh, just a little bit. Just talking about the awakening ritual and how this would be the third with the Nicolette. That would be the third different. Well, actually, the fourth different setup, right? Where Blake and Rose both had slightly different instructions, and now in this one we found out why those instructions were slightly different, right? The old way and the new, which was pretty cool. Because I don't know if that wasn't revealed in Pact, right? Or was it? It might have been.
In Pact talked a bit about how it was flexible in that, I remember when Blake awoke his Cabal, Alexis and all of them, they were very fast and loose with the items, the skull. I think they had a little plastic skull or something.
Yeah, wasn't the Rose some smushed up powder with water or something that they paint? Or I don't remember.
They had to get
vegetable
very
ash, right?
Yeah. I just remember that one they got very sort of fast and loose with the exact nature of the objects.
That's what I was thinking regarding the living thing that Nicolette mentions. I don't know about Mile End. However, if it's this sort of thing, I can definitely see the categories were so vague, right? So the five, those items, the pillars of human experience, right? The one that we have seen the most, right, is skull, coin, timepiece, knife, and thread.
Woven object.
Woven object or thread, right? So I think in the original one it was thread, right? In Pact,
I think they use a dream catcher in Pact actually,
but that has string, right? That has thread.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But each object is also its own object, even if it is tied to whatever the category was. So I can definitely see that that evolving over time, right? So maybe the thread that was one of the objects not mentioned in Nicolette's thing, and so was the coin. The thread, someone brought a doll, right, as a woven object, and eventually someone brought an actual baby, maybe, and then that just became living thing in general, or something, which is interesting.
If anyone didn't listen to our Mile End thing, we talk about their one as well, but they had 6 of them that awoke together. So the Kenneteers woke as a trio.
Wild. Yeah,
they have 6 of them, but they don't. As you said, the big part of the Kenneteers was that old way where the others brought some of the stuff in and then drank of their offerings to the spirits. That was not present in the Mile End. The Mile End was a lot closer to Blake and Rose's in that thing of they laid out all these bowls and then the stuff just kind of mysteriously disappears when they're not looking because the spirits sort of take the offering invisibly. But yeah, it's definitely interesting how there seems to be so much variety in this stuff, and it's exactly how you do it affects how you end up as a practitioner. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was interested. So all of the ways that they view they use the site, I found that especially fascinating because it's so much more different than in Pact, and I think part of that is probably just as a writing thing, right? Where Wildbow's writing, the weird stuff in this world for the first time. So when he's going to do connections, he kind of went with like the most clearest, interpretation of that, right? Which is just like lines. It's much easier to picture Blake's lines than Verona's meaty things everywhere, right? But now that he's a much more confident writer, he's gone like way out and making these so different and unique.
Yeah, Pact had some of that uniqueness to the site. I remember in Arc 8 we get a bit of Mags's and it's slightly different, but you're right, I still sort of view Blake's as the vanilla site.
Right.
Yeah,
where he sees like certain groups of connections and all that. And I think there's like
he seems like the kind of guy too to do that. Like it fits his character.
And he was a vestige, he doesn't get all the bells and whistles. He's So but you're right. There was sort of just like, he sees connections and a bit of other stuff. Whereas, what's interesting to me is I had a picture coming into this story of the site as the connections and the like filter put on the world are just a little bit unique. But like Lucy and Verona don't even really see connections. They see completely different things.
Right.
And the connections are this afterthought to their site. It's got so much more variety in this story than I think I realized it had.
I wonder if that's to do with the fact that they clearly are on a different kind of level to a lot of other practitioners of their level of age and experience, right? Because of their kind of wild practitioner status. Like, is that just something where, practitioners that are awakened in air quotes in the system have a more homogenous kind of site just because that's the world they live in, whereas this weird other method leads to weird other kinds of site that's not necessarily so connections focused or whatever.
Okay. I think in that case, to find out, we should look at like Nicolette's interlude, because she has like a bunch of different kinds of site, right? I forget what they would like though.
Well, she cheats because she has glasses that let her flip between different frequencies of sight, which again, cool as shit, I think, in this story so far for me.
Yeah. There was so many more students than I thought, right? Because during the school year, there's not actually that many students. There was just Nicolette and like the douchebags, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't tell if that was just like the school was off, or it was like, that's just the Bellinger wing after dark.
Yeah.
Like, all the normal students and normal people are just, off in their buildings, not being in super toxic environments, and Alexander keeps his crew close.
I'm not sure. I mean, isn't there only like 4 Bellingers? And there was more than 4 people there, I think.
There were a few more. A few extra, yeah.
Okay, I don't know where I got that then. Okay.
Just one last little thing from me as well, and this is slightly going against what this episode is, but like, because I have read 5.A, and I don't think we're going to do a back to Pact for a while. I just quickly want to say I totally think that thing in 5.A is demonic, right?
I have not read it yet.
Yeah, the mummy. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Matias, what must we be sounding like to you? I don't know. Maybe. Hard to tell, in my opinion.
Exciting.
Maybe next time we do a back to Pact, we can debate.
We can dive into it.
I
should read 5.A and 5.B, Matias. They're great.
I think it was a little Poe's level imp, like Easter egg.
Cool. Well, that's one thing I was wondering is like, are we going to see many demons? Because I mean, Pact was
about
Otherverse demons. Yeah. It was so like I don't want any of the big bads to be demons. I mean, they're
you don't
fucking
think
awesome.
Earl was the person who killed the Carmine Beast?
Well, no, because we still remember her.
Yeah, true.
God, what a terrifying thing. And it's a minor demon. Oh my gosh. Oh
what
no.
If guys, okay. Cracked it. Matthew's ability to take away memories is because he is one of those motes. Do you remember how when Blake got eaten?
We didn't actually see
never saw them again.
Yeah.
Well,
that's too bad.
That's what Pale's for, because that's who Matthew is. Secretly,
that's actually not
an mote.
That we might. I don't know. I feel like we could see one of those motes, maybe.
I think the thingy I'm talking about in 5A is probably as much as we'll see. I feel like demons were Pact's thing, and I don't know. Yeah, like I think this little maybe a mote that appears for a bit of a chapter is probably all we're going to get of demons. Like this is an Easter egg for Pact readers in 5.A.
What I want of demons is just like we open a door, we see a demon, and we're like, "Fuck that!"
Close
and we just leave
door.
it alone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I want to see of a demon. Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about that requires packed spoiler knowledge, Matias?
Not in particular, but of course everything. But yeah, I'm good. I can do that in the Discord.
Then let's close that metaphorical demon door, and also the episode.